my fault. It was
Okay,
so
we
long.
are live.
Pajamas, I got my shorts on.
Okay, great.
And I put a,
Let's call the meeting to order since we have 1 hour.
In
Okay.
15 minutes.
1 hour and 15 minutes, but they all count.
Yes.
So we'll start with introductions, beginning over here.
Jim Lothridge?
Diane Potter,
Alyssa Tracy,
Megan Carlson,
Becky Fless,
Molly Rogers,
administrative staff.
Angela Hardy, Director of Curriculum.
Pat Hopkins, Superintendent.
Terry McGuire, Director of Technology.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. I am the acting chair today. You won't see me again in this seat, but maybe just to be here. While we reconfigure our board committees as we have 3 new board members, so it becomes challenging to represent all the communities. So thank you for your patience as we do that.
And we have one more board member on his way. He'll be here in about 5 minutes.
Perfect. Great. Thank you.
So today it's Staff Appreciation Week. It's Teacher Appreciation Week, last week or this week, depending on who you're asking. And we wanted to make sure, since this is the month that we meet, the day we meet to represent this month, that we spent some time celebrating and honoring staff in our district, because we could do that all day long. There's just been an opportunity to highlight a few snippets. Gives the board a chance to understand a little more of what's going on in our system beyond the monthly reports that you get from the administrative team. You will have an opportunity to ask questions. We are trying to keep the presentations between 5 and 10 minutes per building. And I will I have everything set up on a screen, so let me share it so that if it'll keep us organized. Some people will share a narrative. Some people will share a narrative with some photos or slides. It'll depend on the situation.
So exciting.
And I just want to
Freya's
thank you
here
all
again.
for coming. I'm going to introduce you
Hi, Freya.
as we go through this. And I'll try first.
She's learning how all sorts of things work. Cool.
Great. And we're all set, Terry? Super. So we just want to take a moment. It's May. It's getting very busy. As you all heard, it was testing season. So there's a million different types of spring assessments going on. There's end of school year events and performances and field trips, and it gets to be every morning. I remember as a teacher waking up and trying to remember, like, what day of the week is it? What are we doing? How many days till the weekend? And how much joy can we put in the end of the year? So I just want to take a moment and recognize a handful of our staff and what they've been able to offer our students who are developing their own leadership this year. So today's recognition will be, we'll start with the high school with Patricia Morris, and Christy McNaughton isn't able to attend, but she helped sort of think this through on the career and technology and life and work courses our students take. The middle school will be Sarah Kaplan and Chad Greenleaf, who will talk to us about social studies in 6th grade, specifically around Wabanaki studies. At LER, we'll have Amy Ellis talking about family learning night, right? And Tracy speaking about Shark Week in 2nd grade. Riverview, Kim O'Brien will speak to us about a fellowship focused on global competency and how that will influence her learning and our students. At Helen Thompson, Cynthia Snow will share some great work around establishing a story walk. And at Pittston Randolph, Patsy Adams will talk about the recent STEM Slam that we had for 5th graders from Riverview and Pittston Randolph. So again, just a snapshot, but it's an opportunity. So we're going to start with the high school. Patricia, your slides are all right in here. Okay. So if you want to just click the arrow down as you go through it. And I didn't do that. How long have you been working in the district thing? Probably should have. So if you want to mention that, feel free.
Do I get to say that I started my career here in 1989?
Wow.
And then I left and I came back 6 years ago, but yeah, you learned a little snippet. I just aged myself. All right, we'll move on. So I'm delighted to be invited here to speak about what Christy McNaughton and I do at the high school, which is the two of us are the career department. And we teach 2 required courses. They're semester-long courses. Mine is the career and technology, and Christy's is the life and work, and I teach sophomores primarily. Sometimes I get upperclassmen who can't fit it into their schedule. And then the companion class is Christy's class, which is life and work. So what I'm projecting is just the little blurb that's in the handbook as to what our course is about. But mine, obviously from career and technology, I really focus more on the career than the technology. And to get all of those standards in, I try to use the technology in a variety of ways while I'm teaching them the topics. So we're doing everything from career basics is what I call it. I will get to that actually, because you don't want to hear me talk forever. So I'm just going to skip, and I'll skip back to life and work in a second. But so for mine, I'm teaching what I call career basics and exploration. And I'm trying to focus on things like communication, so they learn how to write an appropriate email. And I have to highlight my favorite email activity is, now that they know the proper way to do it, I have them pick their favorite teacher and write a real email and blind courtesy copy me, so I know they did it and I can evaluate it, assess it. And so they get petrified. They're like, oh my God, I have to write to a real teacher. That's embarrassing. And I said, no, you tell them it's an assignment and you were told to pick your favorite teacher. Who wouldn't want to get that letter, right? And it's just, I get such positive feedback from staff, like it made their day after a lousy incident or whatever. So I'm just putting that out there. It's kind of cute. So, and then the normal things that you would expect, like how to write a proper letter, a resume, job application. I embed taxes into this, so they learn how to do their forms for when they get hired, you know, with their I-9 and their W-4 and how to use those things. And kids are really proud to tell me, I applied for a job, or I got my W-2, I didn't know what it was for and I threw it out, now what do I do, right? So like, awesome, yeah. And then, you know, both Christy and I try to focus on like habits of work and what we call soft skills. So we get to teach material and then embed all these other skills. The kids don't quite know that they're learning. I tell them, but they don't listen to instructions. So they don't get that the goal is not just give me the feedback of, you know, put on the paper what I want you to, but it's all this other stuff. So I'm gonna flip back to Christy's, which is life and work. And hers has more of the personal finance topics, although my class does include the work-related ones. We tried to figure out how we could slip some of the personal finance into my class because she just doesn't have enough time in a semester to teach those really important skills that we know we don't want our kids to end up with too much student debt or debt in life. We want them to make good choices. So everything we try to do is to help them make really good informed choices for themselves as they're planning ahead. I did include this little piece here, so if the board wants me to print it out and send it as a handout, it's a really great visual on what's in a personal finance class. Neither one of our classes is called personal finance, but we cover the personal financial topics in our courses. And so you can see that this top half, I divided it so we can actually see it, is career and spending. I'm focusing most of my time on career, a little bit on spending because I do the banking activities with them as well. And I try to put in some of the digital stuff like digital protection in there as we go through it. And then the life and work class is really more about the financial concepts, this savings, the credit, how to pay for college, those kind of things. I love that this graphic had the foundational skills because those are the soft skills, some of them that I'm trying to get folks to understand this is what we do. And we get so excited about this. Like Christy and I, if you know Christy, you'd rather that she was up here speaking with me. She's just fabulous. But we're really two different people and we just love that we have different ideas and we like hash them out, you know, like it's just really invigorating for both of us and hopefully the students benefit from that. But the psychology, she really wanted me to highlight that because She does a little bit of the behavioral science behind, the behavioral psychology behind spending, for instance, right? So the personal finance topics, like the behavior, like why do we do what we do? So there's a lot of activities that we've managed to get training for from Next Gen Personal Finance in particular, and the Jumpstart organization of Maine. So I know I'm trying to go through this quick and I'm flipping all over the place here. But I do end up with a career portfolio. So the technology, there's a couple of places like spreadsheets, for instance, kids just don't know how to do those. So I introduce a lot of things. We never get to do a deep dive, like do it 20 times till you get good at it. But at least the kids know what those tools are. And for me, I tell the kids, I'm giving you tools. I'm not giving you enough time to use them well, but I'm giving you these tools so you know they're there. And when it's time to make a decision about what college you want to go to, you'll know you can go into Naviance and you can do the super match again, or build that list now and next year until you're a senior. So we do a portfolio, which is a website. So that embeds a lot of different technology aspects as well. And then I'm just going to jump because I already said that I do the taxes. I do labor laws and wages because that's quite interesting and it changes. Christy uses a simulation it's called Mimic Personal Finance. And I wish that I even had more time to sit in and I've sat in just a little bit on it. But it's basically something she starts and does the whole semester, which is a real life simulation. So the kids are assigned a job or they apply for a job and they get paid and they have a bank account and they do online banking and they do this every time. And so there's some, I'm not going to do due diligence to this, but there's some things like if you can get perks. So you could, if you want your cell phone out, you have to buy that privilege, like buying a phone plan. You got to buy your apartment or real estate. So like some kids are sitting on the floor because they don't want to spend the extra money on the really high Tony rent or mortgage. So it's just like to make those comparisons. And it's really interesting how that all shakes out. They get a grade, they buy their grade with their money. So the goal is to make money so that you can buy an A, right? So if you're spending all your money on your cell phone plan and every time you want to go to the bathroom, they're charging you $500, big money, you know, suddenly you don't have enough at the end of this month to buy your A. Now you've got a B or a C for that part of your thing. So that's really kind of cool. And the kids, they buy into it to a degree unless they're the ones that are spending their money and then they just get cranky, like this doesn't make sense. Yeah, they know. So that's the Mimic. And then she does another awesome thing called the 20% project. That is a semester-long project where they, it's 20% of the grade, but they spend 20 hours on a project of their choice. And it's all about learning how to like come up with a vision, come up with a SMART goal, and then how do I, you know, do that? And it's different things for some kids. It might be, I'm going to work on my anxiety and I'm going to do journaling. It might be, I'm going to, like, I love doing woodworking, so I'm going to like spend that time on how to do that. And these projects are fantastic. I don't know if she's highlighting any of them at the showcase this year. Do you know? I don't. She has in the past. Yeah.
She often tries to. Yeah.
So she really focuses on those soft skills too, like the listening, active listening. She uses something called RASA. I can't remember what that stands for, but it's a reflective kind of thing. So when the kids do the projects, they listen, they have to give that, like, I heard you say kind of thing, and then come up with a question. And so they're practicing those good communication skills. Really, it's really fantastic. We just often, the two of us, just reflect on how it's just the two of us, and we get to do all these different things in this course, you know, like things that are important, we know are important and don't get a light shined on them, and that's okay, because that's not the end goal. The end goal is the kids, right? And we know we're giving them some really good skills to get out of here. Okay, so I don't know if you have any questions for me.
What kinds of questions do you have? I just will add that I have randomly popped into Patricia's room and then I was quizzed on my tax knowledge in front of the students. And thankfully, I was like at 100% success rate. So I was grateful because there were a lot of eyes looking at me. And there's a lot, but at the same time, there was a giant Jenga in the middle of the room that they used as a tool for getting to the questions that were part of the tax
Yeah,
quiz. And
that was
so,
if they got the question wrong, they had to put the Jenga block back in.
without knocking over the whole system.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of student engagement in this work and a lot of training. Patricia and Christy are constantly engaged in learning through some national organizations and are given scholarships for their learning endeavors to participate routinely.
Yes.
So it isn't just everyday knowledge, it's that they continue to seek deep understanding around how to do this work with students.
Our latest thing is ChatGPT, to figure out the AI. Yeah, we've already found some cool uses for it.
I bet.
You know, and the concerns, and we're trying to educate ourselves on that as well. But there are some positive things for that too.
So it's a great app.
New territory.
It's
Do you
very
have-
fun.
Do you have any questions for Patricia?
I just am curious how students learn about your class and do they realize how hands-on it is? I know you probably are pretty full. I know Christy does yoga too. Selfishly.
Yeah, so it's a required class.
Okay, got it.
It's not an elective.
Great.
Yeah, and I taught both personal finance and a career class at Maranacook. The career one was required, but the personal finance wasn't, which broke my heart because they weren't getting steered into there because it wasn't given the due diligence. And if you're not aware, the organization that we've gotten a lot of scholarship from and training, their mission, they're a nonprofit. Their mission is to get personal finance to be a requirement in every high school as a standalone class. And there is a piece going before, a legislative piece going before the committee next week that will make it, you know, if it passes, it would be a required course in every high school in Maine.
Yeah.
And it is here, so congratulations to Gardner for doing that way before I got here. And
Yes.
I do say it's my legacy at Maranacook. As I left, I got them to pass that as a new graduation requirement, so it was that.
So if that passes, especially as board members always paying attention to bills and policy, we already meet that requirement. And that's part of like, there's always a narrative about financial literacy. And I thought it would be a great opportunity for you to learn about the fact that we already have this and it's embedded, it's not new.
No, that's why I say congratulations, you were ahead of it.
And it's
you know.
required. So.
Do you know what LD it is?
Not off the top of my head, but I can write it down before I leave. and
That'd be
give it to
great.
you.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Because we have a legislative committee meeting tomorrow, so that might be one of the bills we're looking at if it's coming up next week.
Yeah, it's in the educational committee. I went to the one last week. Oh my God, those are long.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how anybody does it, but man, what a nice group of people. They did such an excellent job. I
Yeah, they're
was so impressed.
Did you go physically?
Yeah,
Good for you.
yeah. I couldn't stay as long as I'd like to, but I did stay till like 5 or so.
There was a
Yeah.
couple last week that went to like 8:30.
That's the one that went to 8:30. I was just like, I can't do it.
I was there too and I left it.
Did you? Okay, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Sarah
like-
was there.
Yeah, but thank you.
Thank
and,
you, Patricia.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I wish it was Christy up here and not me, because I feel like.
You did just fine, you did great.
Just great, yes.
So Sarah Kaplan and Chad Greenlee, they're our 6th grade social studies teachers. And if you might, could you just hit the arrow down just so, there we go. And you can share however you want, just so that we're reminded
Yeah, no
what the
problem.
focus is. Thank you,
I
Chad.
think I'm gonna start by just handing out some very small work samples of some student work, and I think I have enough for everybody. And Angela has actually seen these. Had I known maybe a little bit sooner that I was gonna do this today, I would have had some different samples, but a lot of my students keep, I returned that work.
We're gonna love this. Thank you.
Give you,
Thank you.
I know quite a few of you in the room, because I have been with the district since 2010. This is my second year teaching social studies for sixth grade. And I just wanted to say that, you know, I'm excited to teach social studies. I was excited to teach about Maine and Maine's history and the Wabanaki people who were here before us. Sort of a timeline of how I teach Wabanaki studies. As I go through the history of Maine, I like to incorporate the Wabanaki people sort of in a chronological sense. And that's sort of what I have here for you today. I hope you don't mind that I have a note card. It's a lot easier talking to sixth graders than adults. So we often start off talking about the Wabanaki way of life before interaction with the Europeans and sort of what does that look like and who were they as a people. I quickly integrate stereotypes. I spend some class time talking about that because there are a lot of stereotypes associated with Native people and Native nations. So we sort of work our way through that and get rid of those stereotypes and talk about the fact that Wabanaki people are still among us today. The most recent number I heard, 8,500 Mainers belong to or are represented by a certain nation, whether that be Passamaquoddy or Penobscot. I'm lucky that my best friend in life is a member of the Penobscot Nation, so I'm pretty, it's always been helpful to have sort of an in there. So, and I've been to Indian Island and seen what goes on there, and I'm happy to share that with my students. We talk about the importance of oral history with the Wabanaki. You know, there was history before things were written down and sort of the creation of the written word. And that's just as important, those stories that are passed along through oral history. We do talk about the early encounters with the Europeans. The Wabanaki, of course, the English and the French dealt with them in vastly different ways. The French were a little bit more obviously accommodating. Still looked down upon them, but saw them as trading partners and were overall much nicer to the native people. Obviously tried to convert them to Christianity and such and set up missions, but they weren't as cruel as the English were. So we discussed those relationships and alliances, which later led the Wabanaki to align with the French. We talk about the fur trade and sort of how that really started the demise of the Wabanaki and how they became dependent on that for trade for goods. We talk about diseases brought over from Europe and the idea of land ownership. What does land ownership look like from the Wabanaki point of view? And what does it look like from the European point of view, and how they obviously vastly different, right? The Europeans believed that you could actually physically own a piece of land. The natives, the Wabanaki, not so much. You were just temporary users of the land, and we all know sort of how that ended. We talk about them giving up sovereignty and sort of how it started with Massachusetts Governor William Phips, and that idea of them starting to cede land or give away land, because eventually land was really all that they had of value once they started interacting more with the Europeans. Throughout the lesson, I try to have make sure my students, whenever possible, my main goal is to build empathy for the Wabanaki. So that's one of my things that I try to highlight. We try to have the students make sure that they put themselves in their shoes, they understand their way of life and sort of the struggles and what it must have felt like to have this happen to them. Talk about Maine Wabanaki falling into poverty and through statehood and discrimination that took place, which eventually led to hunting grounds disappearing. We wanted to use it for agriculture, for farmland, and how the Wabanaki eventually became dependent on the government. So some of the work samples that you have in front of you, the first one is a Wabanaki seal. As we go through our sort of timeline, as Maine is part of Massachusetts, it's becoming its own state with its own people and culture. We all have a Maine seal, it's on our Maine state flag. And so I tasked the students with coming up with what a Wabanaki seal might look like with some of the same constraints and how it represents their heritage, their culture, and their way of life. And the other piece that you have is a poem by a young Penobscot girl who is of similar age to my sixth graders. And if you've never read the poem, I implore you to do so. I actually sometimes I have a hard time reading it in class because it's so impactful. It's actually quite sad, and it really pulls together a lot of what I'm trying to teach. And if you notice that it's entitled We the Indians, similar to our US Constitution, We the People. So there's a statement being made there. So other than that, if you have questions, you can certainly keep those and look at those. I would like them back at some point, but I think I'm going to turn it over to my colleague who I draw inspiration from every day. I think she's wonderful, and that is Sarah Kaplan.
Thanks, Jack. I have a couple of work samples too that I can pass out. If I had thought a little bit more ahead, I would have made photocopies. So I have kind of one example of a variety of different work that we've done related to Wabanaki studies. This one is maybe probably the best synopsis, which is our final test that we took a couple of months ago. So I would take a look, pass it around. I maybe have enough for everybody. I'll skip Angela.
We can collect these two to make sure you get these back.
All right.
Just give back.
Great. And this is, has no title, but this was a study guide the student made for the test that encapsulates some more information. I feel like I know very few of you. I'm Sarah Kaplan. This is my second year in the district and unfortunately my last. I am seizing an opportunity to move to the West Coast this fall to pursue a master's in education at the University of Washington, which is I'm very excited for, but I'm also incredibly sad to leave. So gearing up for some goodbyes, which will be hard. So Chad really said a lot of what happens in my classroom as well. I would say that maybe the big focus that I have in my Wabanaki Studies unit is really based on recognizing equity and inequity and understanding the history of the Wabanaki people before the arrival of Europeans, understanding them holistically. So looking more at, yes, it is important that students understand the ways that they have faced oppression and continue to face oppression, but it's also important they understand that there is more to who the Wabanaki are. So we spend a lot of time learning about Wabanaki culture, religion, government, art, those kinds of pieces as well, so they get a more holistic understanding of who are the Wabanaki today and who were the Wabanaki 13,000 years ago. We, this year specifically, spent a lot of time reflecting on some of the current legislation that is in both our local courts and also the Supreme Court. Specifically, we watched the movie Dawnland at one point to give students a lot of background information on what are the challenges the Wabanaki have faced in the past couple of decades in this state. And one of the things that popped up specifically was the Indian Child Welfare Act. So we spent a lot of time learning about what is the purpose of that law? Can you understand why people support that and why people are fighting against it? And ICWA is now up for debate within the Supreme Court right now. The hearings already happened, so I think we'll probably hear the result of that in a couple of weeks or maybe a month or two. So we spent a lot of time looking at what is that legislation? How would it change things if that were to be revoked? We also spent a lot of time learning about the language that's used to speak about Indigenous cultures and history and people. And as we went through all of these different pieces, I could see it in my kids' reactions to things in their eyes, that they were just getting so angry with the way that Indigenous people have historically been treated, but really continue to be treated today. And so based on the frustration that I saw, and also sometimes I feel that sixth graders and middle schoolers and even really high schoolers, I think they fall into the false idea that they are powerless to do anything in the face of these challenges. So we, as a final project, ended up writing letters to our local representatives, so Karen Montel and Dan Chigori, expressing the opinions they had about what they think is unfair and what they believe should be changed. And then both of them very kindly read all 80 letters and then came to speak with all our students a few weeks after that and kind of gave their responses. And I think that was really impactful and meaningful for them, and teaching them, in addition to the stories and the present challenges of the Wabanaki, also civic duty, and that if you are frustrated about something, you can do something. And also that it is okay to question the way things are. And I think that is probably maybe the underlying tenet of a lot of the things that I teach is, if you see something or a person in power or the way something is and you disagree with that, that is okay. And that you should make that vocal if that is the way that you feel. So I think that's been a huge part of our Wabanaki studies. Looking down at my chicken scratch to see if I forgot anything. I think that's really kind of it. I think there are a lot of pieces that Chad and I overlap with, which I think are really great. And I really love having Chad as a partner, because it's so great to have someone to figure this out with together. This is such a new, well, it's not a new field, but it is, I think recently people have began to really understand that this is a really critical field that needs to be a part of our curriculums at all grade levels. And so when the district did some reorganizing with sixth grade curriculum a couple of years ago, it was really awesome to have a partner who was there with me as we figured things out and figured out how best to do justice to the Wabanaki story and their perspectives, and highlighting their voices as much as possible. I feel like now I'm kind of rambling a bit, so I'll stop there. Does anyone have any questions about anything? Yeah.
Are they aware right now of like bills before the legislature to grant sovereignty and the recent history of not being able to do that?
We talked about that a lot. We spent a ton of time in my class talking about what really is sovereignty. We spoke about some of the past legislation. We used, I can't remember which cases they were specifically, but there were a handful of major cases throughout US Supreme Court history that dealt with the idea of Indigenous sovereignty. So we spent time looking through those, and based on that, we tried to arrive at a definition together of what really is sovereignty and why does it matter. And then although this unit has ended, Chad and I both do current events every day with our students, and so that's one of the ones we've been following really closely. And it's interesting and amazing to hear their perspectives. I think that in the face of things that can be really frustrating sometimes, that the kids are always the thing that bring me so much hope and excitement about the world and about our future. And they are so willing to fight for things and vocalize their perspectives, and it's really awesome. So yes, we have been following that when it first was brought up. And we had it was an echo of a conversation that Angela had brought up in our professional development meeting with the high school and middle school social studies department previously. So that was awesome to bring some of the resources that we were talking about as educators and have that same conversation with 11-year-olds and see them rise to the occasion.
And just because we're being videotaped and I want to make sure it's super clear because we've had these conversations, is that you heard Sarah say and Chad say, it's about in a lot of time an opportunity to inform, to become critical thinkers and to know the points of views. Why is this important for one group of people? Why is this a challenge to another group of people? It is multifaceted, the exploration that they're going through and understanding the roles different units of people play and why they'd be for or against in another way, particular stances. So while we may have, of course, personal opinions, the teachers are working really hard to ensure that students know how to have critical conversations with each other. And a lot of times, especially at the early onset of these conversations, either they need more information, they have a lot of questions, or they have strong opinions. If not necessarily about Wabanaki studies, but about other things. And I've seen in their classrooms how they navigate that to ensure that it's a safe space for those critical conversations and opportunities. You don't have to all be in agreement. You just have to be respectful and think through, what are the questions we have and how do we pursue that?
And especially regarding legislation, one of the big things that we talk about is, something would not be a bill or something would not be in a court system if there were not multiple perspectives on what is right and how do we support people. And we come at it from the perspective of lots of times specifically regarding Indigenous people, but regarding, most things that are in legislation, that people have often very common goals that, people want kids to succeed, people want, everyone to have opportunity and access. And so really the debate is not, what are the outcomes that we're hoping for, but how do we get there in the most equitable way possible. And that's often where people differ in their opinions, and making sure that we understand that if we are going to have this conversation, even if you have your own opinion, that it is critical that you understand more than just your own perspective, because if anything else, that's the best way to win the argument. But also that who knows that you could potentially change your perspective if you're exposed to more than just, your own internal thought process.
And this is why I love working with Sarah, because she's much more eloquent than I am.
I know, I feel like I just.
You're different.
So you do us great justice, so I appreciate you.
Do you address the optics of looking at what happened 400 years ago with the optics of that group of people versus the optics of 2023, based almost 400 years, a little more, and the perspective of what was considered, hey, it's good, not now. Do you discuss that in your class, how it changes over the centuries?
Absolutely. And I think that's a huge part of understanding the rationale or the reasoning behind historical action, is you have to understand what was the historical context of that moment. I do think that, and I think Chad and I both do this, that we make it clear that there is a difference between what was historically normal or normalized and what was historically okay. So there was never a point in history where, to maybe do the obvious one, like slavery was okay. Slavery has never once been okay. But there was a point in our country's history where slavery was normalized, and making sure they understand the historical context of it and what validated and justified historical action, but also understanding that that is different than our perspectives today, and that we have a lot more information and context today. And we've grown a lot in 2023 relative to 400 years ago, but also understanding that there are truths about the way a human being should be treated, and that those things have remained true for all of history, and that in moments in history, they just haven't been followed in the way that we are moving towards and more closely following today. So yes, that's a huge important point, a part of our curriculum for sure.
Thank you so much.
Yes, any other questions?
Yeah, actually, just wanted to appreciate, that you're presenting this in a really thoughtful way and just mindful. It sounds like, you're really listening to how the students are responding and sort of like, hey, here's what you can do with that. And so finding ways to build on that as a class. What segues next after looking at, Indigenous sovereignty and
Well, in terms of our curriculum, we kind of bounce all over the place a little bit. So we, the overview of the sixth grade socialist curriculum is we do geography first with a focus on Maine, which is great because then that leads into our Maine studies in Wabanaki history. And then in the spring, we do ancient civilizations. And specifically, I've been focusing on Mesopotamia, Greece, and Rome. So in many ways, those things feel really disconnected, but I also think that, ancient Mesopotamia is 5,000 years old. The Wabanaki's history is 13,000 years old. So I think that there's a lot of historical context they bring to our conversations around ancient civilizations that they get from our conversations around the Wabanaki and the development of their culture and their civilization, which I think is really helpful. So even just today, we were talking about the Greek mythology, and we were comparing that to the stories of Glooskap and Wabanaki religion, and how religion changes over time and how belief systems change over time based on the knowledge you have and technology that you have access to and those kinds of things. And so there are points of connection, and I think just continuing to build the skills of, as you learn about inequity in the world and as you learn about challenges that people face, what are the things that you as an individual can do to fight for equitable representation and equitable treatment? And what are the things that you can do as a student to put yourself in a position where you continue to be open-minded and continue to learn and continue to be thoughtful about taking on and listening to and really absorbing the perspectives of others, specifically marginalized communities.
That's a great way to wrap it up. Thank you so much. Thanks, Sarah.
And
Do you mind hitting the next little arrow down?
Arrow down.
Yeah, awesome. I just want to make sure we get everyone's opportunity to speak. So we're going to transition from the middle school all the way down to pre-K to 2. So we have a pre-K educator, Amy Ellis, who's been with us quite a long time now. I've lost track, Amy. And she's going to speak about LER's Family Learning Night. That's coming up, right? Yeah, and then we'll have Tracy speak about grade 2.
Well, my name is Amy Ellis, and I have worked for the district since 2002 and have taught pre-K since 2003, so I've been around for a while. So Karen asked me to come and speak about Family Learning Night, and I'm not organized, so I did not provide any pictures to
That is
Angela.
okay. It hasn't even happened yet.
I know, but she's like, there were previous ones, but I can't find them. So Family Learning Night started when we were a failing school, and it started for math only. We were failing for math, so we created Family Learning Night where parents would come in and we would feed them, because they always come when we feed them. So we have pizza and we have salad and we have cake. And then they transition into the gym for learning activities. And now it can be anything, literacy, math. So teachers come and we set up activities, and we want the parents to participate with their children and kind of see what we're doing at school. And first grade always does a store, so they have to do some math, and then they get to go shop in the store. And the rest of us kind of just I do bingo usually, we do guesstimation, different things. So we haven't had Family Learning Night since pre-COVID. And one thing that we found this year is we are really missing the parent involvement. So LER started the year off by hosting a barbecue, and we had over 500 people attend our barbecue. And they didn't come in, it was just kind of an outdoor thing. Johnson Hall, who was so great with the arts, brought in a juggler, and we set up a stage, and it poured the entire day. And Karen was like, it's gonna stop and we're gonna have it. And it did. And so we hosted about 500 people in September. And then pre-K really realized we were missing the parent connection, and we have what we call Family Fun Day, where parents come in with their pre-K students on a Friday. And we used to host about 3 a year, and we haven't had any since pre-COVID, so we said, let's bring them back. And so we did one in March, and we had about 75 to 100 people who joined us on a Friday morning. And now we are bringing back Family Learning Night at the busiest time of the year on May 25th. And we have a lot of new staff. Oh, and Sari realizes we're very busy at times.
Exactly.
So that is coming up on May 25th. Does anyone have any questions?
500 people.
I remember seeing all the panic posts before it happened.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, I wish, yep.
LER was not a failing school. You were a school identified as needing some continuous improvement. Correct. You were never failing.
Yeah.
You weren't failing. There were just some opportunities for things that needed to be done a little bit differently for.
And it may have felt like a failing.
may have
school
felt
because
that way,
Karen
just-
hates failure.
You were not failing.
Right.
Of any kind.
Just needed a
They
little
gave us some
support.
money and they gave us some ideas.
Yes.
We are no longer failing.
Can I just jump in to say I remember those early ones? So my
Mhm.
children, my kids went through LER, and I just remember those being such wonderful like community times. And I mean, there'd just be hundreds of people there and just brightly lit, and just.
I remember
so-
that too,
yeah.
Jake, yeah, that was.
Yeah, and I'm so glad to hear that they're continuing, and that still having that kind of community impact. And I know that just still speaks to me. I'm glad it's still.
Yeah, and I think before COVID, on those nights sometimes when you're a teacher and you're there till 7 o'clock, you're like,
Yeah.
But since COVID and we haven't had parents in schools and we haven't had that connection, we've really been missing it. So we're really happy to be able to bring that back.
And I'm glad for that as well. Our strategic plan talks about community and the importance, how people value it here. That's like the underlying current all the way through it is community,
We
so.
want partnership. We
Yes,
want them to come in
absolutely. I
all the
think that's
time.
great. Really great. Thank you.
Thank you,
Right,
Amy.
and I hate to talk and run by.
We have a couple teachers who have some family obligations, so they may walk out as soon as they're done, so that's fine.
That's
Thank
fine.
you.
Thank you
We have
so
a baseball
much.
game going on with a starting pitcher coming up, so we're. So Tracy, they're all there, but I forgot to show you the order, so just click through and then click back through. You're pretty flexible.
Am I clicking down? or
Yeah, you are totally in control.
Oh, there we go. We'll start with that. So my name is Tracy Lowell. I'm a second grade teacher at LER. And we do Shark Week. We started last year, so this will be our second year. And it's a lot of fun for the kids and fun for us. We use the collaborative classroom reading program. And in that program, there is a book about, 2 nonfiction books, one about coral reefs and one about, it's a story called The Shark Lady. So we kind of springboarded off of that and started all of this fun with it. And it's thematic, so you do sharks all through through each piece of our curriculum. So this was, so we had a little shark guy, all the kids put their heads in and we took a picture of them, that's what's up there. And we do a lot of math work during the time. This one is just on fractions. We use the week, it's toward the end of the year, so we use it as a review of a lot of different math concepts. And let's see, it is out of order, so I'll just.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. So we look at the fractions with the shark fraction craft that's up there. The kids play a bump game, of shark-themed bump game with addition fluency that practices addition and subtraction, or not just it's addition and subtraction fluency within 20. They work on shark-themed word problems, adding and subtracting within a word problem, and then some practice with 2 and 3 digit addition and subtraction. And then they do look at some mystery numbers too, and I'll see if I can find, there's a few
Yeah,
other
it's in
pictures
there. There's
there
a
too.
little
I'll go
hallway.
back to that, I'll just look for the math. Oh, no, I guess I can't.
I'm
Oh.
sorry.
So my coworker, Keyser, Mrs. Frida Keyser, decorated the hallway. So when the kids walk in, they see all of these She's amazing. Like there, and
Frida's so great at
That's why
that,
she's
though.
my Girl Scout co-leader, because I'm not creative.
She does everything. She came in on the weekends
Yeah.
and we didn't even know. She didn't tell us she was doing it. She came in and the kids come in through the streamers and they were just, that was how they walked into their Monday. It was really, it was really, it was
That is so great.
So, and up
There
there.
you go.
So this is just they had to do some work with secret numbers and it's easy. We just call it shark themed, or when if there's a picture of a shark on it, we can sneak math work into it. It's pretty simple. And then this student is playing the shark bump game where they have to they practice addition and subtraction fluency with the game. You can see they've got little hats on, the little shark craft that they have that we worked on. This is, and I'm kind of gonna go all over the place, I guess. So we did
Sorry,
two
Tracy.
STEM activities, it's fine. The young lady over here built a shark tank and she's holding the shark and she had to construct it in a way that there's a diver inside of it, that paper inside is a diver, and so she had to construct the tank so that the shark couldn't get through. And I don't know if you can see, but she actually has some of the toothpicks don't have marshmallows on them, so they're a little bit sharp, I think. So I think that was her way to deter them as well. And we did some conversations and collaborative work with that. The slide on the other side is that at the very end of the week, we had a little party. The kids had ocean water and fish fruit. I think those are the little cups in the front. Beach balls, they were just like little cheese balls, and shark bait was goldfish and the redfish combined together. So that was our kind of end of the week collaborative fun.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I might have missed one, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, that's fine. I think.
Thought I had more, but
It is, I sent you bunches because I wasn't, I don't think I'm gonna be able to stop that now. I'll just let that.
I'm sure we don't mind seeing you.
So in reading, we read several different books, two nonfiction books and a fiction book, and we're looking at things like in the cause and effect, character traits, text to self connection. So we've got this kind of list of reading skills that the kids need to work on, and they work on it through the year, but it's very easy to integrate it into this themed week. And in writing, we read nonfiction books on different types of sharks, and a big thing in second grade is just looking at text features, table of contents, glossary, diagrams, all of that. And so we look at that, and then the children write reports about different types of sharks during their writing time. They also write in an acrostic shark poem, where you just write the word shark down the paper and write a little bit. For S, they'll do, some kind of a sentence about a shark, and then H and so forth. And we're really basic. I listen to the older, grades, and we're still doing phonics. So we have a lot of shark themed phonics, prefixes, suffixes, multisyllabic words, all of that is a big part of collaborative classroom. So we fit that into the week as well. And I think that's everything, but it's a lot of fun. The kids enjoy it, we enjoy it. It's placed at the end of the year. It works out well that it keeps their attention, and we have kind of all of the food. They have like a beach party. They bring their towels in and get to sit on the floor, and it's a lot of fun.
That sounds really fun. I want to do Shark Week.
And there's 4 classrooms in grade 2 at LER. So that's Taryn Grant and Emily Hersom and Frida Kaiser and Tracy Lowe.
Nice. Excellent. That's
Any
wonderful.
questions? Just trying to ensure that the experience is joyful, they're engaged, and it's purposeful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that just
really
looks
nicely
really
done.
fun. That's great.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tracy.
I really appreciate just the video of the hallway. And
Yeah.
again, this is like, well, we get the look, I've been in there, but not for this week. And so it's great to see what's going on in the moment. And also, again, this look into our schools.
That you don't get to see normally.
That we don't get to see,
That we
right?
don't get to
Yeah,
see, yeah.
it's great.
We're gonna transition to Kim. Her son is a star pitcher right now, so she's a little anxious to go see him.
He's starting
First
pitcher
ball,
for
I
his
think.
8th grade team for baseball right now.
Yeah.
So,
I think there you go.
So I'm Kim O'Brien. I teach 5th grade at Riverview Elementary. I've been in Gardner for 4 years, but I've been teaching for 15 years. I was a 6th grade teacher before this, so I love the middle school age. Like I know 5th grade's not middle school, but they're close. I was chosen as the main representative for the NEA Global Fellowship this year. I am one of 50 individuals in the country, so it's been nice to work with other adults across the nation that are teachers. Some of them are speech and language pathologists, some of them are reach teachers, some of them are coaches. We all come from different walks of life, which is really an interesting makeup. The NEA Global Fellowship is a group of educators that are working together to integrate global competencies into their classroom. So global competencies are building empathy around the SDGs. These are some really weird acronyms that I didn't know anything about before I started this, but I really become well versed in them. So the SDGs were developed by the United Nations as goals that they have for the world. And it goes from no poverty to partnerships working together across the globe. And what we did is we worked on a capstone project as individuals to develop lessons or a unit to focus on one of these goals that teachers could use within their classroom. My capstone project was on climate change. So I worked by myself, and my group was doing another one on refugees. So we kind of looked at climate refugees as well within this. So I developed a unit on climate change, and it was actually based on what we use in our classroom for our ELA program, because there was a big unit on it, and I was trying to overlap different subjects. And I'm sorry, I hate talking in front of adults. It makes me so nervous. So I talk really fast when I'm that way.
That's so scary.
And I did a little bit of a professional development with our school as far as these, and just kind of telling teachers, like, this is stuff you already do, you just didn't realize that you did it. And so these were adopted in 2015 by the United Nations. Their goal is to have all of these goals achieved by 2030. May not happen, but they're working their way there. It goes from equal rights to peace and justice, life on land, so looking at endangered species, to life below water and how to keep our oceans clean, that kind of thing. So the global competency attributes that we use within our classrooms right now are social emotional, so the building of the empathy, understanding different cultures, critical thinking, which I heard the middle school talking about, problem solving, and then taking action. And so after we finished our climate change unit in the classroom, we began working with the Cobbessee Watershed Program, and we have been developing projects the students have. They're either doing posters or board games or music or whatever they can to bring awareness to the different aspects of climate change or recycling, things to help with that. So we're kind of putting into action what they've been learning about. And yeah, so I know that was really fast and I'm so sorry, but I talk so fast.
This summer.
Oh yes, so this all culminates with, I am going to South Africa in July. So I'm going to be meeting with the Minister of Education in South Africa with this group. We're going to be touring different schools and learning about their education process there, and also how they are working on the post-apartheid government and, you know, social structures that are taking place there. So there's more to it than that, but it's been a lot of work.
Yeah, and we
great.
just asked for a sample, and
Yeah.
that's what you're providing. Do you have any follow-up questions for Kim? Besides, like,
And you almost forgot something.
I know, I almost forgot the best part. So I come from small town Maine. I actually grew up in Richmond, right next door. It's where I currently live. And so I've never been out of the country before, except for just over to Canada when I was 18. And I'll let you all build your calculations about why that might have been.
different kind of competency.
Exactly. So I'm really excited to be able to show my students that it doesn't matter your age or your background, but there's a big world out there that you can explore. And from this fellowship, I have a few other fellowship opportunities that I'm going to be applying for so that I can bring more of this knowledge back to my kids in my classroom, because I really want them to be able to see the world, because not a lot of them get the opportunity to do that. we had done like a mystery Skype across the nation with a couple of different classrooms. And next year I'm hoping to do, it's called iEarn. So they connect you with classrooms outside of the country to be able to build relationships with. And then I'm working with our art teacher to, there's a program that does art. So you do cultural aspects of your life and you present it in an art form. And then there's other schools in other countries. And then they take that and they build a book together with those different art things. So it's a lot and I'm really excited about it.
That's awesome. Sounds so exciting. So much baseball.
I will. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Cynthia. Hi. Cynthia's third grade at Helen Thompson. She actually was on our social studies curriculum committee for a while.
yes.
You have a passion for studying in integrating Native American people into our study. So I was
interesting to share with you too.
Yeah, I was glad you were in the room.
Yes, I've been in the district since 2005. I've taught grades 1, 2, and 3 in 3 of the elementary schools. So you didn't put my pictures.
There, click the next slide. I copied everything in. The arrow button on the bottom of the keyboard to the right. There you go.
Okay. So I'll just share with you, I typed up my notes are just like a chronology of my project. So I had been thinking for the past couple of years that it would be wonderful to have a story walk on our campus. So a story walk is just a book. A simple story could just be a book along a trail on plant stakes and just moving from page to page. So getting outside and in nature and enjoying a book with somebody else. So I asked my administrator, Katie Gould, if it could be my professional project, my professional goal this year. And she thought about it and said that it could. So about that time, there was an article in the Kennebec Journal, and there was a story walk in Reed Field and another story walk in that had started in Farrington School in Augusta, and Nan Bell from Healthy Families of the Capital Area had helped the Farrington School facilitate that and provide them with grant money. So I emailed her and she gave me a little background, and I needed to find funding. So our PTA is very active, and I wanted to meet with them. So she volunteered to accompany me to their October meeting. And so she presented to them the, what we involve in terms of finances. And I didn't know this, but the PTA had been wanting to create a story walk and just didn't know where to begin. So it just sort of came together, and they said unanimously that they would support financially the story walk. So after that, the middle school had a grand opening celebration of their story walk, and a gentleman in the community, Ruben Dupre, had on his own time and without pay, he volunteered. He created all the storyboards. So he volunteered to do that for us. So he built, I can show you. He built 18 of those, cedar. They're plexiglass, they have hinge covers and vents. This little vent in the corner that I just noticed on Saturday. And so he built those over the winter before he took off for Florida in March. And we were holding them in, so we delivered them in February before February break, and they were in our storage locker. And then also we received a $600 grant through the Healthy Families of the Capital Area, and that covered the expense of all the lumber. And the PTA had kicked in the balance for for whatever else needed to be covered. And then the goal was to have the story walk open for June 3rd for the Peter Pan Fair that hasn't been celebrated since before the pandemic. So during February, and it seemed like we were going to be on track. So during February break, I needed to start to think about the literature that was going to be placed in the first story walk, and I wanted it to connect to nature. I wanted it to be a local author. It needed to fit into 18 frames. So I visited with the children's librarian. She had a couple of texts that she suggested. It's kind of hard to see, but The Deer Man by Barbara Wall. She wrote The Lobster Lady, if you're familiar with that. Rhonda's Rescue, and then visiting with a Warbler. So those are the 3 books that I selected. I created this bulletin board and announced to the school community last week to vote, as they were walking down the hallway on their ballots down. And I just did a blurb, so nobody had seen the book other than our librarian. And then on Friday afternoon, I counted up the votes, and The Deer Man, which is the one that I thought would be selected. I wanted the Warbler, but so The Deer Man was selected. And then on this past Friday night, Gary Hickey showed up and drilled the holes for there's just the ballots. And then that's sort of, a view, but they, originally, we had walked in the fall. I met with Gabe and the custodian, and I originally had a plan that we would have the signs on the edge of the property, kind of on the edge of the woods, but it turned out it's a leach field and it was on a slant, and I never even noticed that. So it's wonderful because as you approach the school, the storyboards run along this fence and then wrap around. So it's going to draw people in because they're going to see them. And, whereas you would not have seen them at all in the back of the property. So there's a parent in the community who has a woodworking business also volunteered to make a welcome sign at the front of the building. And then one more sign at the end that has a quote about reading. So then on Saturday morning, I arrived at 8, but this dad, the PTA president's husband, had by that time, by 8 o'clock, he'd been there about an hour, had 15 of the storyboards on. And then by 8:30, they were on and we had left. And we were all thinking we were going to be there all day. But Gary Hickey put the posts in and actually, we thought we was just going to dig them. He put them in. So that was completely unexpected. And then yesterday I picked up those 2 books, and the next step is just having them laminated. And then the Friday before the into the story box, and it'll be open for it fell into place. So I can't believe how smoothly it fell in. It was a true parent teacher community organization project.
I love when that happens. So serendipitous, just feels right. That's so great.
Thank you,
Changed
Cynthia.
out every year?
No, more than that. No, yeah, this is probably gonna cost, from the estimate, about $80. I've heard as much as $150 per book, but there are a lot of families that I've heard that will sponsor the price. So, ideally seasonally, maybe even 4 times a year, but probably, summer we'll keep this book, and then probably in the fall, I foresee at least 3, but that'll be, something to plan down the road.
now that we have one at the middle school and then one at Helen Thompson, and you could do like a story walk road trip in our district.
Like we go on field trips to the play, we could go on a field trip for the story walks.
Thank you,
Scroll down to
Cynthia,
that.
sure, that's
Thank you
wonderful.
so much,
I
it's great.
appreciate that. And then we have Pittston Randolph, we have Patsy Adams here to present the work she did to draw in our district as a SLAM event, Student Leaders Ambassadors of Maine. And so it's tech-based, and we had Nokomis Regional High students join us. So Patsy will talk about that. It was for fifth graders from Pittston Randolph and from Riverview at the Pittston Randolph School on a Friday, right? Or on a day.
It was a Friday in March,
Yeah.
last Friday in March.
Yeah, so I put the pictures in there, but again, they might not be in the right order.
Okay, I don't have an order anyway.
Okay.
And I'm just working off my day 2 teacher appreciation gift right here. And it was lit, so I might talk a little bit.
Which is fine.
Very often.
Wait till tomorrow, the next gift's coming.
So I'm just gonna start off by saying, you know, teaching has been really hard lately. But as I say that, there's like room for joy and engagement every single day, and I see it every single day. And so to preface the SLAM thing, I'm gonna give you a little background knowledge about me. When I was in school, I was not engaged in learning at all. And that's always in the back of my mind with everything I do in my classroom. So I know my job is to teach, but I feel like the bigger job that I have is to engage kids and make them lifelong learners, or that's how I look at my job. And so that began like probably 10 years ago. I got involved just on a whim, or I don't know, I think maybe somebody was looking out for me, that I got involved with the RISE Center at the University of Maine in Orono. And I became a different teacher after working with them for a few years. I love math and science. I don't know why I didn't love math and science in high school and when I was a kid, but I love math and science now. Is like my favorite. And new math, I just want you all to know, is the bomb. So if anybody complains about new math, you send them my way, because I will
Straighten them
straighten them
out.
out. So through the RISE Center, I became involved. I went to a 3D printing workshop with them, and then they hooked me up with Dave Perloff from the Perloff Foundation, and I got a couple. He's a great guy, and he'll just send you, you give him your information and tell him what you're gonna do, and okay, I'll be there Monday. And I was, whoa. And so, then I became aware of Kern Kelly at Nokomis, and this was kind of, before that I watched the SLAM show every Thursday. It's broadcast on YouTube live from Nokomis High School. Check it out sometime, it's really informative, and they do great work with having kids teach kids technology. And my kids it is crazy the first time we watch the video, because you got 15 or 16 kids going, wait, stop, what did he just say? So yeah, but you power through it, and then you go back and you watch it again, and they do amazing things, like there's water waving in their slideshows now, and it's just amazing. And so I went to Nokomis High School for 2 days last summer, and I spent time learning more stuff about 3D printing. And I knew I was gonna get some equipment. I do lots of PD because I get free things. And so I knew I was gonna get some equipment there. And so when I got ready to leave the second day, I got another 3D printer. I have a green screen, I have a video recorder, and this giant red toolbox that has all kinds of things in it. Some I haven't got out yet, but so then, because we watched the SLAM show, and we were engaged with Nokomis and Kern Kelly, and he's like one of my favorite people now, because the things they do at Nokomis High School is amazing. They make skateboards, they make guitars in their high school technology classes, and I was blown away by what they do. But he said, Patsy, we can come to PRCS, you know. And he had a quote, I so wished I could have got Helen Thompson there too. But we only had so much room at Pittston, and Riverview became because I could get the most kids there and get the most bang for the buck, or the free buck. So they came, and it was a little bit of work, coordinating everything and getting Riverview there and getting the bus, but everything worked out perfectly. We had 4 rooms, the kids rotated through the rooms, they did slam block coding, and they had an eraser on a whiteboard that was magnetized there, and by the end of it, they had coded enough so that eraser moved around the whiteboard and drew a smiley face on it. So it was pretty cool. Virtual reality worlds, and so they all had they didn't have their 3D headsets yet by that time, but they were able to go into this world on their computer, all of them that did that session, and they created things, you know, and they just loved it. They did animation creation, and that was kind of where the ocean was rolling in their slideshow, that somebody's got to teach me how to do it. And then they did some more 3D modeling and printing. And so I know a little bit about 3D printing. They teach me things every year, but they had smoke coming out of their house in the 3D print, you know, with their 3D print design. I was like, well, how does that print? Like, I still don't know because I haven't printed it. But anyway, we also had members of the DOE were present there. There is a video, they videoed, so the kids, the student ambassadors, they interviewed kids. They made a whole video of this, their video production, and it's on our website. It's on Pistons' website. It's on Riverview's website. So take a look at it. It was pretty good. They did an excellent job. And I will say, I had no idea this was happening, but at the end, we had a big, we went to the gym, or the cafeteria gym, and we had a big closing ceremony. And they wanted to take a picture, so they had the drone fly out of the PE cabinet. And so it came over and it took a picture of everybody there. And the next thing I knew, I went up and sat down, and we have a drone at our school now that they just gave us for being there. So it was a good day, and lots of kids have said, you know, in 5th grade, we write memories for the yearbook, and I had a few kids that said that was the best day. And so as far as my whole like engagement thing and getting kids, like I feel like we all need to be lifelong learners, and we gotta get them now, young, to be one. So it was great.
Will you click through a couple of the
Oh,
pictures just so
sorry.
they can see? They won't have close-ups of the modeling, but it will give you sort of an idea.
So this is Kern Kelly standing up there when we had, it was either opening ceremonies or closing ceremonies.
So Kern Kelly is their director of technology over at Nokomis Regional High, but specifically is embedded at the high school. He's sort of a Terry, but his role really is high school instruction, which is different than Terry's role. And that's where he used to call them Sherpas, the tech Sherpas, which were his students, but now they're SLAM. And but he also is employed by Google Education. And so
Does he just teach though?
He doesn't do all the background tech stuff that Terry is a whiz woman on, but he does, so he's really more of an instructional technologist, but he has a similar title, and even though he's a different role. And but he also works for Google, so he has brought students all over the world because of Google, and that's a unique partnership that you don't see anywhere in the state. But then, you know, these are some of the pictures of some of the students doing this coding and engagement.
And that's in the modular, Patsy, just for board members to be
Oh, yeah.
aware.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
That classroom, yeah. It's a pretty
Huge.
sweet
I was thinking,
classroom.
that's so big.
That's my classroom, as a
That's
matter of
yours,
fact.
yeah.
Pretty.
Very good, space-wise. Yep.
Yep.
There's the 3D printer, I see it.
Oh, yeah,
On
that's
the
what
left,
left.
the red.
That's John Graham up here. He's from the DOE. He's a tech guy from the DOE.
I'll look for, when I send the minutes out on this, I'll send the video
The
link.
video was really good, I watched it, yeah, because we got it through the
the school.
That's all that are.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for Patsy?
I don't have a question, but I've watched you because I've been here a while and you've been here a while. And to watch you grow and be so excited about education and the 3D printing, the first time was up at Coney, the thing that just happened a couple of weeks ago.
We have a showcase.
The showcase, you were there with some of your students and it's just been such fun to watch you love it.
So I will say, I remember the first year that I started teaching, and this is my second career, so I didn't know I was getting myself into really, but I remember that first year going, oh my God, what am I gonna do now? Oh, during the day, how do I fill this day? And now it's like, oh my God, I need more time.
When it bites you, that's so great. Yeah.
Thank you, Patsy. And thank you to everyone here. I am aware of the time, so I want to make sure we kind of close out, but your stories are so important. And this is just a very small piece of what happens every day in our schools by these educators and their colleagues. And we're really fortunate that they can take, they're so creative in thinking about what are the main learning results, what are the resources we have, how do we ensure that there's engagement? You can hear that thread all the way through, and everything Patricia and Chrissy were speaking about in financial literacy, in Tracy and her Shark Week, and Patsy and Slam, and Cynthia and the Story Walk, and Chad and Sarah about Wabanaki Studies. It was all about how do we engage learners and how do we make sure that when they're in school, they are connected, and that there's purpose and value. And that is not something a curriculum can do. That is only something educators can do. And so I just wanted to make sure we took a pause and recognize that.
Absolutely.
We hear from all of the teachers that came here?
Yeah, we do.
We have, right?
Okay, good. I just, because I'll stay as long as they want.
No, we did.
No.
We did six
All of
schools.
them.
So thank you for your time. I wish there was something I could like gift you. I'm feeling after Patsy's, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to have you leave with a gift. I'll have to work on that.
It's just really wonderful
A drone.
to have all of you guys, so thank you so much. I love your shoes.
Thank you. I know, where did you get
those shoes?
Really enjoyed it.
That were like not comfortable.
I'm just training for a half marathon, so I've been really worried about wearing shoes that are gonna give me blisters.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh my God.
Those ones don't?
And
Are they soft?
I've worn them because I've been so nervous.
I got a pair that was like similar and I was like, no, Everlane. It's.
And there was like in it.
Oh, go to the sale.
So I was,
It's good to see you.
I hold on to some of the resources.
I do.
So,
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
They're mixed up.
Okay, do you want to